Hello, what's up, folks? How are you, everybody? This is Gatos FX again, and today I meet with you to talk about political economy and how it might affect the strength of the dollar or strength of the economy at large. And basically, as the United States is approaching on the general election in November this year, and the polls show that the former President Donald Trump is perhaps maybe expected to be re-elected, and he is opting for a certain way of looking at macroeconomic policies, and that's what I want to actually discuss today, based on the interview which he did 3 days ago at the All In podcast. He was with Shamat Fila Haptia, together with David Sack and David Friedberg. So during this podcast, Mr. Donald Trump was able to address the way he wants to revive the American economy by selecting on the dovish or expansionary fiscal policies. That's how he sees it, that will going to good reflect the economic performance. But as the economist and the political analyst, as well as financial speculator and forex traders, it's really important to understand the strengths of the dollar because it has a major impact on so many other financial instruments we are trading about. So, with this today's podcast, I'm not going to focus on technical issues or fundamental issues, but we will focus on political economy because if Mr. Trump will get re-elected again, that's what is going to implement on the expansionary dovish fiscal policies, and they would have an impact on the economy. As you know, since United States is the leading economy in the world, so decision made by the Federal Reserve, decision made by the a government in Washington would perhaps have a great role and impact in the economy at large, and the strength of the dollar or the weakness of the dollar will ultimately spread even to other financial instruments and pairs. In this interview, there were areas which I cited very much closely, like I saw there are very much potential with respect to forex and the financial market business. To begin with the issues of cryptocurrency, although he did not go deep into it, but at least he recognized the donation which was done by the two twins to donate about 15 Bitcoin into his political campaign, and he accepted it. So that's one of the good significance points that to address. Like, we don't hope that if Mr. President get be re-elected again, we think that the environment for cryptocurrencies will continue being addressed well, and there be good more opportunities. Let us hear from himself.
Turned out great. And I heard the Woodcross brothers are actually announcing that they're donating $1 million each in Bitcoin to you tomorrow. So I think that's a great result to come out of it as well.
Got to meet them for the first time at your house, and terrific, terrific. They did well.
And again, another aspect area which I really cited very important for political economy and the revival of the United States economy, which would perhaps affect the strengths or the weakness of the dollar, is when he was asked about what would be his number one or two priorities if we get re-elected, so that he could have implemented. Of course, I heard him very directly and correctly that Mr. Trump cited that he is going to focus on the tax cut and the regulation tax. So all of these, meaning that he's going to opt for dovish or expansionary fiscal policies, whereby he might decline tax in order to promote for domestic production, and they reduce the income tax burden, especially to the poor and the middle class. But however, so far, all of these policies have got both of positive and negative aspects. We shall discuss them later. But let us first hear as how he respond, like how he's going to cut tax and cut regulations based on his economic point of view, how he sees that this is going to affect the economy, and then we shall meet later to have an economic analysis as if this is what he is going to do if he gets back in the White House.
Dinner was just the difficulty that people in business were having under this Biden administration. You got the crypto guys who just want a framework. They just want the government to tell them how to operate, and they can't get that. You got no M&A happening right now in tech. The real estate guys, they can't get loans because the interest rates are through the roof and there's a credit crunch. So I think one of the common themes we just heard across that dinner was that it was just so hard to do business right now. And I guess maybe a good place to start would just be, you know, what's the number one thing, maybe the top three things that you would do to kind of get things moving again, you know, if you're reelected?
So it's a regulation, and taxes. Okay? You know, I gave the biggest tax cut in the history of our country and a lot to business. It took them down from, look, as you know, they were paying companies were paying 40%, 45%, including state and city taxes in many cases. And we got it down to 21%. We'd like to get it down lower, actually, but the revenues were better than ever, even with the lower rate. We had record revenues, which tells you a little bit about that. But also the regulations. And when I asked a lot of people, a lot of big people, a lot of corporate types, big corporate types, I said, if you had your choice between just the taxes or just the regulations, where did I do better? He said the regulations. I was the biggest cutter of in 4 years. I cut more regulations than anybody by far, not even close. And when I spoke to different people about the regulation versus the taxes, I don't think I've ever had anybody say, and the taxes were a massive cut, you know, from 37, 38%, if you look at it just there, to 21%. I don't think I ever had anybody say that the taxes were more important than the regulation cuts. I made it possible to build. I made it possible to do things, to invest. I was able to get companies with a lot of money outside of the USA to bring that money back in. You know, we cut the rate, and it was crazy. The rate was like 55%, so that means if they bring the money back, they lose half their money before they even start. But it was also impossible from a standpoint, a structural standpoint, a legal standpoint. It was very hard. And they were able to bring back, I mean, Apple's an example. They brought hundreds of billions of dollars back.
Now here we can see like how he says like a cut of regulation and tax cut would have an impact on the revival of United States economy. I think as an economist analyst, I direct look this approach as a expansionary dovish policies, whereby implying that he is going to cut tax, he aiming at supporting or giving tax relief to domestic production, domestic industries, and domestic activity that they are going to experience a lower cost of production, which enhance might have an impact on them in terms of expanding their production size and volume, as well as reducing the tax burden to the core workers, because tax cuts would also imply tax in income cut, tax in revenue and income. That's why it's going to affect even the purchasing power of the people. And look at it as himself cited that this cut tax and tariff will have an impact on both sides in terms of political gain and in terms of economic gain. So for the matter of political gain, this tax cut would have improving domestic production industries. You know, we are in the global competitive world, and in terms of political gain, because he's a politician and the United States is going for a general election in November, perhaps he wants to attract more voters to select or to elect him in the next election. As we see now in the polls, he's still the Republicans are reading over Democrats. But what we're gonna see is what the Americans will decide on November election. So let's get to hear him more when he explained about the importance how he looks at tariffs, because he talks about increasing tariffs, something which would probably affect and increase the cost of imports. But this has two sides to look upon, because it might cause a global warfare. Other competitors might react the same. So let us hear from Mr. Trump himself how he responds to these narratives. Because there were arguments which were initiated by analysts, even including Lawrence Summers, when he said like this Trump proposal, it might cause a stagflation. As you know, stagflation is a combination of higher consumer price inflation and a stagnant economic growth. Because what he's feeling like, if you impose more tariffs, that means you're going to make import very expensive, and this might affect the poor and the middle income people, as well as it has a global effect on a fair competition in terms of economy. Because if you are going to increase tariff, that means you are going to increase expenses for other nations to export their products into your country. What if they are doing a corresponding the same reaction into your product? This might even cause and prolong this global inflation at large. So let us hear what Mr. Donald Trump have had to explain about this concern.
You proposed would cause a massive, I think he called it the mother of all start to fund an increase in prices. Mr. President, can I just ask, Summers made a comment the other day, and I thought maybe you could respond to his tweet that the tax cuts coupled with the tariffs that you've proposed would cause a massive, I think he called it the mother of all stagflation, where you would have kind of inflation because of the tariffs, you would have economic decline because more money would start to fund an increase in prices with tax coming down, tax cuts being put in place. Can you maybe just comment on the comment made by Larry Summers and how we implement tax cuts without inflation?
Well, let me say that I respect.
Well, before Mr. Trump explain about these arguments, I would love to give more explanation about the concern which was raised by Mr. Lawrence Summers concerning stagflation. Stagflation is a situation which refers to a combination of higher consumer price inflation and a stagnant economic growth, with a rising inflation which might be caused by the supply side shock or sharp increase of oil price, like oil price surge, and the government spending. Because if Mr. Trump opts for dovish fiscal policies, that means tax cut will be there, and the government spending, of course, might be increasing. So under these circumstances, perhaps increase in purchasing power would be inevitable, something which might cause another prolonged expectation inflation during the implementation of those policies. That's why people trying to look at his way out of approaching the economy might cause a stagflation. So let us not pour the words into his words, and let us listen from Mr. Trump himself.
With money coming in or money going out, but other things that are very political, because there are a lot of other things involved in countries. You have tremendous power over a country. Now, not everybody can say that, but we can, because we're the big piggy bank. But our piggy bank is going to get smaller and smaller all the time because we're losing power. We're losing a lot of, countries on the dollar. I mean, they're going like flies. If we ever lose that, that's the equivalent of losing a war. That would be unbelievable. That would really make us third world. We have lost so many countries. I looked the other day. So Russia's gone. You take a look. Ukraine doesn't sort of exist in a sense. Nobody knows what's going on there. But when you look at China is essentially gone. They're trying to get out of it. They're a primary competitor. Iran is not there. The other day I read where Saudi Arabia is willing to now go in various different currencies instead of the dollar. This is a tragedy. This is a big thing that's happening against our country. And we cannot let that happen. With tariffs, it gives you a tremendous power, as an example, not to let that happen. You say, you want to do that? We're going to put tariffs on your product coming into the United States. But more importantly, and that's a big importance, but probably of more importance is they tax us, we tax them, reciprocal trade. I think we should have a reciprocal trade act. If China's going to charge us $100 tariff or 100% tariff on a car, then we should say, you got to pay 100% to us. I put on a large tariff on China cars coming in, and it had a huge impact, a huge positive impact.
So here we go. As we have heard him that he want to take a reciprocal approach. If Chinese or other countries impose high tariffs on U.S. goods and services, they're going to double do the same way. So this is what I think Mr. Lawrence Summers has raised a concern, and of course I agree with that concern. Like it might cause a global warfare if this approach is going to be imposed. But I think the economists and the political economy analysts in the United States, as well as the presidential advisors, might have taken a precautious measures to address about this challenge. And after all, he is not yet elected, but I wish if he got elected, that's what I'm going to do. Then, if you look at these things, like he said that they are both two benefits in terms of political gain and in terms of economic gain, he still believes that a tax cut and increase in tariff will just be a good measure to, of course, defend and protect domestic production, domestic industry, which in terms of economics, I agree. Here now, with the economic aspect, which I really insist when I'm even teaching in my classes, like I said always, that these economic policies, as economists, philosophy, we use to address them when we want to address a certain economic situation. And there is no any economic policies which has a long-term solution that might not cause either a short-run or another long-run economic challenge. That's how the economy is, and this is what gives us the reflection which we see even in our forex chart. You see the highs and lows, the highs and lows. These all movement of highs and lows are the results exactly as the economy being reflected just by the implementation of the economic policies that sometimes, yes, we want to revive the economy. As you see here from this GBP USD, dollar had been weak since 2022 due to most of the reason, most of the fundamental macro reason in political and even biological issues. We have had the corona pandemic, there was a lockdown in the world, especially in the United States, so production went down and inflation increased to the extent that it was never experienced in the past decade. Like, let us go to the data and see here. We have inflation report for the past decade since 2013 to date, whereby the inflation rate was below 2.5% for the past 7 years since 2013 to 2020. But due to the corona pandemic and lockdown, inflation in the United States was increased up to 7%. And as we closed the last year, 2023, inflation was declined to 3.1%. But recall from the chairman of Federal Reserve of America, Mr. Powell, he always said that the target of the Fed and FMOC is to bring down inflation to 2%, which is economically efficient. So now you can try to align these things. How do America approach? Like the Federal Market Open Committee is opting for the contractionally monetary policy, whereby we see interest rate has been keep on rising since pandemic eruption to address and reflect the economy. But here we see now Mr. Donald Trump tries to explain to us if we get elected, he's going to opt for tax cut. So how would these all two policies interact each others and help the United States economy to get back into its function? But however, so far, what's important now is to lower the inflation. But for us, financial speculators and traders, we are concerned and very much concentrating with the strength of the dollar, because if the economy of the United States revives, that means dollar will be strong. But in terms of financial speculation, whether dollar is weak, whether dollar is strong, we're going to take good trades, whatever we buy or we sell. But in terms of the citizen or the macroeconomic and the global economic aspect of view, all in all will depend with the decision and policies that implemented by the leading leaders of the states. So let's continue to address this interview and get to learn more from himself. Again, Mr. Trump was asked about the national deficit budget, how he is going to reflect it, and he had some answers about the national deficit this year.
Some things we've talked about President Trump on this podcast a lot is the deficit. Under your administration, we added close to $8 trillion. Under Biden, it's going to be paradoxically about the same number. Seems incredibly unpopular in Washington to cut costs, but that's something we're going to need to do. What's your plan? And it looks like you're going to win a second term here. What's your plan in your second term to control spending? Can you get it under control? Is there the will in Washington to allow you to do that?
Well, the biggest thing I think is growth, because we can grow our way out. As an example, we have more liquid gold under our feet. I use the term. We have more oil. We have more wells. We have more everything than anybody else. When I started, we were number 3. Now we're number 1. We were number 1. He's going to keep it that way until after the election. If they ever won.
All right, folks, we have heard from Mr. Donald Trump, the former president of the United States of America, who is looking to be re-elected in the November polls. So this is how we see that he is thinking about reviving the economy by employing tax cut and the rejuvenation tax in order to, in his perspective, that to bring back the revival of the United States economy. The questions remain for me and you as financial speculators and traders. Would this policy have an impact, or how are we going to react in the financial market in terms of the strength of dollar? All in all, in doing market analysis, there is no any single factor which could perhaps be used to determine the direction of the market. It's a combination of many factors. Like here, today we have seen the political economy, how it will influence the monetary and the fiscal policies and how it drives the economy. And we have also the macroeconomic reports news, which are reported by the central government. And well, we are also having technical analysis, which we normally look at the charts pattern, candlestick behavior, and make decision. So guys, this is Mr. Gatose FX. Make sure you stay tuned with us next time, whereby we are going to bring more political, analytical, economic like this. See you and have a good time.